been caught, Gary.
Okay, everyone. Right.
That's just my standard face too.
Some excellent stuff apparently happened. Some teamwork happened in the break, and the mover and me as the seconder have agreed to add on to the end of 4, additional pedestrian/cycle safety features on Wairere Drive. And I believe that the mover of the amendment is happy with that because it picks up the concerns that he's raised. Councillor King, is that correct? You happy with that? Just
Sorry.
Yes, Chair, I am very happy.
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
We are being collegial. Yeah.
Karina just had a couple of questions to ask us.
Okay, so she can ask those.
Would it cost more or less to put underpasses around the entire roundabout? Or underbridge, yeah, underpass. Has it been considered?
It's probably more, there's probably a couple of dimensions to that. One is, when we brought it back to council last time, underpasses were seen as a personal security risk in areas, you know, where there's not a lot of people around. So there's, it's green fields and paddocks. And the other issue is any underpass that went to the right of Wairere Drive would be sacrificial because it's right in the way of the future interchange that goes maybe there in 10 to 15 years' time. So the bridge one made best use of the topography, and it would be permanent, it would stay there and fit with the future interchange.
Is an underpass typically cheaper than an overbridge?
Probably pretty much about the same. I think the maybe a little bit more expensive in this case. I'm just looking at
our early indications of weighing up an underpass versus a pedestrian bridge, where the bridge was estimated to be the $2.5 million, which is the budget we've allocated, and an underpass was 2.2-ish.
And those are estimated?
Those are the estimated costs at early investigation stage, yes.
Was it an underpass going every which way?
No, that was one.
That was a single underpass across Cobham Drive in the location of just on the eastern side of the Wairere Drive roundabout.
So it still didn't get you across Wairere?
No.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, Councillor King?
Yep.
Yep. We are...
as long as... who's seconded and firsted the...
Seconded and firsted?
Yeah.
Yes, we're happy to include
happy to change it.
On the 4 features on Wairere Drive. The seconder and the firster are very happy with that.
It goes through to next week.
And it goes through to next week.
And that's the key thing. It goes to next week, so
Yes.
that's when you can litigate if you
It
want.
is. Okay. Right. Debate. Deputy Mayor, it's your motion? No? Anyone want to debate on it? No? All right, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Are there any against? Councillor Mallett is against. Okay, that's carried. Great, thank you. Item 11, page 127. This is the Beale Cottage Historic Reserve Management Plan Assessment. I approached Councillor Gallagher to also be on the working group, and he has agreed with the Deputy Mayor. There's obvious interest in heritage in the city. Hello.
Hello.
And we have Helen and Cherie here, so you can take the report as read. Is there any questions on the report for staff?
Yes.
Yeah, Councillor King.
Why are we doing this? Have we made a mistake in the past? Is there no management plan in place at the moment for historic reserve property? With this historic reserve property, I'm reading the report and I'm trying to work out why are we doing it.
I think the Deputy Mayor, as the Heritage Panel Chair, might be able
In
to help.
recent months, we have fielded a number of complaints from people that have talked about the overgrown nature of the section and how it's inaccessible to the public.
I think we all got
Now, this really, the purpose of the report is to allow us to bring together all the other reports. We've got as many reports as we need. There's no further expenditure required on getting this information together. What it's about is reviewing a 2006 development management plan. We've kind of put Beale House, the city's oldest dwelling, on the back burner. It's almost a she'll be right, mate. We've done the management plan, ticked the boxes, got a tenant in there, and now suddenly the public is concerned about the condition of the hedges, the trees. We need to know what the condition of the cottage is. We have a responsibility to protect Hamilton's oldest house. And so the purpose of this is more fact-finding, so we can come back to council on June 7 and say this is what all of the reports say, they're all over the place, and this is what we think needs to be done. So at this point, I am going to indicate to the chair that I will move the recommendations, because it's a very simple, straightforward situation of a panel getting together, pulling the information and passing it on to council. So I have no idea what that might mean, whether there's any spending or no spending, what needs to be done. We need to have the information first. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy
So-
Mayor.
Thank you for that elaborate answer. Why is there a management plan in place at the moment?
Yes, there is, and we're required under the Reserves Act to continuously review that plan, so this will be part of that. So it hasn't been reviewed since 2006.
Have staff, I'm looking at page 129, bullet point 1, whether or not a review of the management plan is required. Surely, haven't you gone far enough to know the answer to that?
That's correct, which is the purpose of the working group. So they'll make that assessment and then make a recommendation to the Strategy and Policy Committee in June.
Have you found something concerning when you looked at it?
Just what Councillor Chesterman has alluded to around really are we meeting the current objectives that are outlined in the plan? Some of the complaints that we've had would suggest that we do need to look at how we can do that better. It may not require a comprehensive review of the current plan, but that's a decision that or a recommendation that the working group will make.
So are there other heritage places and land that we could also include under this review of the management plan at the same time? And instead of doing a piecemeal one at a time? I'm just reading this report and I'm really struggling to second guess what's going on, because it actually isn't clear to me.
We
We're doing a
potentially could look
report
at
to
that,
see
but-
whether or not a management plan is required under section 41. Is there something under, there's nothing under section 41 you know about that's not complete?
It is specifically the Beale Cottage
Yeah.
management plan. There is no intention to widen it, and I would be very happy to step down and allow Councillor King to spend some of his personal time getting a first-hand experience of a very straightforward opportunity.
Yeah, thanks. Look,
Yeah,
I
I'll
think,
take that up. So you're
just-
stepping down
well,
and I'm stepping
hang
in?
Hang on a
Yeah,
minute.
I'm just,
I'd be very
I'm just
happy.
picking up the offer.
Hang on.
I'm
the-
quite happy with that.
Hang
Thank
on
you,
a
Gordon.
minute. The reason, basically, the guts of it is, the reason the report is here is due to an increased number of complaints from the community that council addresses this. And
Yep.
I think we all got
It
a
doesn't say
group-
that in the report
We all
anywhere.
got a group email.
I'm just, where does it say that in the
From-
report? What you just said?
Well, I read this report and don't have any more information than you do, Councillor King, and immediately remembered the couple of emails that I've had recently that everyone was CC'd and or sent to everyone.
I'm sorry,
about
but I'm not in the
Beale
inner
Cottage.
circle. I didn't get those emails.
You're not sorry, what?
Did you get any of those emails?
They might have been last year, but I know we got them from Lois Livingston, from the Maple
I remember something from
community.
Lois already.
Sorry,
Last
Chair,
month.
I
Yeah.
I personally get the phone calls
Yeah.
and the emails because I'm chair of the Heritage Panel.
Mm.
My point is, it
Residents
says
feel
nothing in the
comfortable
report.
No, I'm speaking, Councillor King. I get those questions because people understand my concerns about heritage matters. So I'm not expecting that they would go to Councillor King or even Councillor Mallett, who would probably be prepared to sell it.
And the
I just would have
GM
thought it,
Yeah.
that feedback, that information would have been in the report and it's not.
Lance, would you like to help us? Why is the report here?
I think it's been explained. So simply it's about councillors and staff actually looking at, as we're required to do a review of management plans, is look at the current management plan and the other information reports that we've had over the years, as Councillor Chesterman alluded to, and then say whether or not we need to carry out a full review of the management plan. What it can do is take into account those concerns and those opportunities and other suggestions made by the community about the future of Beale Cottage. Look at all of that and then weigh up, do we actually need to do anything on the bureaucracy side of it around the management plan, or do we just have to do something operationally to sort things out? So that's essentially what it's about, but this is actually about following a clear process around that to do that. So I don't see this as being a big weighty exercise or anything like that, but it will give us a clear answer around where we go in the future.
So are there other historic reserve property that should be included in this review?
Well, it is a historic reserve under the Reserves Act. There's
That's
different
right.
classifications.
Yes,
So
so-
what we're doing is we're reviewing this in an efficient way in line with what the Reserves Act says we need to do.
My question is, there are other historic reserve properties that we have in our portfolio, which probably haven't been looked at in the last 10 years either. Would we wrap them all up together? We've had a couple.
Most of our reserves are held under other classifications. There may be one or two which are wrapped up in the our management plan, which is around riverside landmarks, etc., which is pretty much all our riverside parks. So, look, I'd have to come back to you on that, but I don't see this as being like a big weighty exercise on its own. But I think the next, because we do have some omnibus management plans for other types of parks, like sports parks and amenity parks and ones like that. So those ones, we don't do a single management plan for every single park. We've wrapped that up. I think the only other historic reserve we have is Piranha Park by memory, but that may even have its own piece of legislation too.
What about some of the other houses that we have on reserves that with caretakers type houses?
They're wrapped up in those other management plans.
They're not historic reserve properties. They don't come under the same act.
I think I couldn't answer that categorically, councillor, but there may be one or two that may have some listings in the district plan rather than which the management plan has to refer to. I think this is a bit of a special case because this is a cottage that is in our care and has quite significant heritage values, and it sort of sits on its own. It's not like on a large park like Memorial Park or Piranha Park or the Lake Domain or anything like that. So this is a bit of a special case.
Okay. Where I'm coming from is I wrote across the top of this report, why, because there's no reason why put in here. It's now emerged that it's complaints from the public, which wasn't in the report, which I wasn't privy to that information. So hence, I'm just trying to understand why, and I've been told the reason why.
And it's a good point, and look, we take that on the chin, and we'll be clear about the purpose of and the intent of reports in the future.
And the Amendment 1, why hasn't the complete, why have we only been given 6 and 7? Why haven't we been given the full document?
Because the report had referred to the vision and objectives, so I just attached the vision and objectives, but the full management plan is available and I can make that available. Happy to. This would have been a big document to have in the agenda.
General Manager, can I just ask you just to check your other historic reserve property that we administer and see if that has been, as Helen's saying, we have to look at this, it's 10 years, to see what's happened with our other historic reserve properties. Because this being brought forward because of complaints and the others are sitting there and no one's complained, I'm wondering why we don't wrap the whole thing up in one review.
Yeah,
And
so
cover it all
we'll
off.
have a look at that, but just so you're reassured that we do review our management plans for all our parks, as per the Act. This is a little bit different because it's not wrapped up in one of our omnibus management plans that might have 37 parks in it, which is an efficient way of doing that. And it has general policies and then it has a section on each particular park because of the type of park it is. This has actually got its own management plan because of the unique, the separate location of it and the uniqueness of this actual property. So, but what I'll do is I'll just check so that you're reassured that there's any other
Historic reserves
Yeah.
we're talking about, there's very few.
any other ones,
We
and
do
what I
have
can do
this.
is I'll circulate an email to councillors once we've done that in the next couple of days, just so that you're reassured that we don't have any other things like this in the cupboard.
Thank you.
Councillor Mallett?
Thank you, Angela. Lance, Gordon was saying that this has been triggered by complaints from the public. I think, I'm not trying to misquote
I
you, but
said
something, pardon?
I said that, and I'm only assuming that from the
Okay,
correspondence I've had.
and there's damage to the property or it's not being maintained and lawns aren't being mowed or something, is that the sort of stuff we're talking about? Because who the heck looks after the place?
We do.
We do. So it goes back to
No,
asking some question about, hang on,
a point of order. It's not true that we look after the place. As part of the tenancy agreement, there is a requirement for the tenant, whoever that may be, to keep the lawns and the gardens in a reasonable condition. Now, Freedom of the City holder, Ted Armstrong, is one of my most serious complainers about this. He walks past it every day. And so we need to make sure that the tenant is actually undertaking the requirements of the lease, which is very cheap.
okay, thank you.
And inside, we need to check whether there is any roof damage or any damage that needs to be considered. We don't know. That's why the suggestion was made.
Okay, that's marvellous. Thank you for clarifying that, Gordon. And that is a good clarification. But the question's still the same. And if it's our asset, and even if we delegate some of those maintenance things, Lance, why aren't we checking it? Why has it taken this long? And it goes back to some other searching questions about what happens to who was supposed to have done that job?
We have a tenancy agreement which is dealt with through our property department.
So most property managers actually manage, one of the jobs they do, I know in the private sector, is they manage a property on behalf of the owner.
Yeah.
And they say, one of the things we'll do property checks, we'll make sure there's no pee being cooked up there, that the lawns are being mowed. What did we do about it?
That's part of it. Yes, it could have been better. The second part of it, though.
But hang on, so who's to blame? No, you have to ask that, Leo. Otherwise, it never gets asked.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is about governance, and this is about finding out what's going on.
Yeah. Really, it's between a couple of departments, so
Pardon?
between a couple of areas.
No.
So
Ultimately, I take responsibility,
So
councillor.
us.
Okay, well, okay, this time we're gonna stick it out. And who's delegated the job? Who was delegated to do those jobs?
So, like Lance was saying, it is across a couple of departments that I'm following up to make sure as part of this process that it doesn't happen again.
I mean, we're a multi-million-dollar business or organisation that takes money from people's, based on their, rates from people, and we can't even sort those things out.
can I just say it's a little bit more, there's a broader context to this as well. So yes, there's been some interest from people around the state of the property at times. The other thing is when you look at the management plan is with historic buildings, they have historic gardens and things like that. So and Councillor Chesterman alluded to it before around what are the enhancement opportunities in the management plan. And to get a tenant to do that in a tenancy agreement, that won't happen. So my experience with historic type structures and gardens and things like that, to implement those types of enhancements, which brings it back to its full historic context, is something that council needs to do You can't expect a tenant to
Yeah,
do that.
but those are all things we know.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I think-
we've been in this business for a while.
So part of the interest from outside parties are not about what the tenant has or hasn't done, but it's actually about what council can do to go further with the intent of the management plan that has those enhancement opportunities in it, which, to be honest, may come down to budgetary considerations as well.
Okay, it just seems to me, sorry to harp on, but it just seems to me this is what we're here for. We're guardians of the public purse, and we delegate that job to you guys. And then part of what we do is set policies and carry on, but we also got to keep people to account. And it just seems like some of us in this chamber just miss that.
Yeah, and I think that's where the value of the heritage advisory panels come in, and obviously Councillor Chesterman's heavily involved in that, where we have those outside people who have views and have expertise and can actually help guide that and make suggestions to council. Can I just say though that there has been budgetary constraints going back 3 or 4 years where to be fair, we did take a minimalistic view to this property, but in a temporary capacity. So there was always the idea that we'd come back and revisit things, and it's the same with other things in our parks and open spaces area where we had to rationalise budgets, and when things have got more favourable, then we can bring some more money in for arboricultural works on trees and things like that across the street network. So this has been a bit the same, and this is now the time to review that.
So just following on from Councillor Mallett's questions then, included in the report that will come back from that'll include the recommendations from the working group would be where exactly it will sit in the Beale Cottage Board, the management and administration of Beale Cottage will sit in the future, who will be responsible, whether it's community or parks and reserves or whatever, wherever, so that in the future we don't find ourselves in a situation again.
And I'll be quite frank, it's probably around heritage structures that we've had it crossing over a number of parts of council, and I think you're exactly right, Councillor O'Leary, that we need one area of council to actually look after that. I'm happy for it to be the community group. I personally have had 10 years experience in the Auckland region looking after one of the biggest heritage portfolios, so, and I know that Sally and her team, that can work with Cherie and outside people, do have the wherewithal to do that.
Because we just, as an organisation, we don't have that, do we? Like you're saying, that
No, look, some councils have a heritage advisor, some councils have a heritage department. So I'm not saying that we need that, but that's something that we'll work through and clarify as part of this process.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mallett, did you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thanks. Look, just further to Councillor Mallett's questions, he has asked the right questions about our responsibility in looking after this precious city property. The little bit of background, and there's another aspect to it, was that the management plan was developed under Mayor Redman in 2006, and the placing of a tenant in the property was a way in which we could kind of forget about the property, because there was no budget to go in and do a great job on the historic gardens, or even look at putting antique furniture into the house, restoring any bits and pieces that needed to be restored. And I simply don't know now, because it's been out of sight, out of mind, until we received a number of complaints. The second part of it, which is as critical, is that part of the management plan, and recollection, was that it would be open to the public at times to view Hamilton's oldest building. Now, I don't believe that that's happened for a number of years. But in the past, 2010, a bit before, I think there have been some garden parties and other visits organised, and that's an opportunity we need to revisit. And the question I would ask is, do we need to tenant it? Should it be a open museum with furniture from the museum placed in there that's relative to the period? I simply don't know. But it was out of sight, out of mind, Gary, behind some very tall hedges, and it wasn't until Ted made that direct complaint as one of 3 others that I had that I suddenly said, well, what are we doing about this? And that's the result, that's how this report came out. We need to rethink the management plan, what we need to do, and maybe we don't need to do anything. But I just think we need to ask the question. So I agree with what you're saying about responsibility. Too precious an item to step back from it and allow a tenant almost the sole responsibility. We did get our outside staff go and cut the lawns and the hedges just a couple of weeks ago, and that was as a result of one of Ted's complaints.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
So is the house actually, can we actually go and look through the property, can we, as it says in the report?
We can, obviously, with permission from the tenant.
Can you just define who we is? As a councillor, you mean, or as a
No,
member
it
of the
says
public?
the public are allowed to go through it.
Public in the past have, on organised days, like Councillor Chesterman said, have gone there for garden parties and things like that.
Oh, not through the house, into the garden.
Just the garden, yeah. The current tenant did tell me that she occasionally has people knock at her door and ask if they can have a look through the garden, and depending on what they, look like, she might show them through the house as well.
So it's a residential tenant?
It is, yeah.
I think it's been a good discussion because a lot of information's come out as to why we've got a report that isn't in the report.
Yeah, I just want to make very clear though, Councillor King, that was only my assumption that it was based on complaints from the emails that I got. I'm not privy to any more
Gordon
information.
said the same thing.
Yeah,
Councillor
than anyone
Deputy
else has
Mayor.
got. I just read it and thought,
has
oh,
made it-
that's probably because of,
The Deputy Mayor's made it very clear.
yeah.
It did certainly prompt discussion and raise our awareness
Yeah.
around the timeliness of,
Yeah.
it's been 10 years and it does need to be reviewed,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, Councillor Gallagher, do
Have you got a seconder for the recommendation?
Not yet.
I'll second that. I'm
Okay.
happy to add councillor King.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Gordon said he'd step down
Yeah,
and that I
yeah,
was...
well, I'll get back to that. We've got,
Well,
yeah,
hang
so
on, yeah.
I was just going to ask, Councillor Gallagher, I was just going to ask the Deputy Mayor, because he did offer for Councillor King to replace him as chair of the working group. Is that still what you
Yeah, I'm happy
were
to
requesting?
change the recommendation to be chaired by Councillor King.
And you-
And you add the other members of the party that you want, including
Well, no, that would
identified
be
staff
Councillor
and-
Gallagher.
Well, I want to add, I'm happy for councillor King to chair, but I want to add the chair of the Heritage Panel as well, and I think it's consistent with his brief.
He made it very clear,
Well,
Councillor
if he-
Gallagher, that he wouldn't be a part of it.
If he,
Councillor Gallagher, I'm very happy to allow Councillor King to be persuaded by his involvement with this panel about the value of heritage. Because if he can't be persuaded by chairing this committee, then there is no hope for the city.
So, okay, so
no,
Deputy, yeah,
so
Deputy
I'm
Mayor,
not arguing.
We're all
No,
doomed.
no, okay, everyone. So Councillor Gallagher's asking if, okay, you're stepping down from chairing, but are you going to be a member?
Would you
of the-
accept?
No, I'm
Or
happy
not
to
at all?
stand right away.
He's
I'm
saying
too
not at all.
emotionally involved with it,
Okay.
and I would say yes to everything.
Okay, so is there anyone else that wanted to be on the working group? No,
What
okay.
about you, Karina?
Okay, so look, we've had enough questions, etc. on this one.
So,
Um,
I'm wondering, I don't want to prolong the debate, but
But you will
we
anyway.
finished questions?
yes, so I'm gonna put the vote, so we're into debate.
Right, well, quick debate, of course, certainly here with councillor Mallett says around accountability, and in this case, the only person we can hold accountable, of course, is the only person we employ.
So exactly
that's
what
the-
are we
We're
debating on?
we're
What is the wording
debating
now?
a motion that is now changed that a working group be established chaired by councillor King, and also councillor Gallagher as a member, so
Yeah.
chair, I'll go on it.
So on the, yep, we're going on the board.
I certainly would hope, without it all being
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay, councillor
And I
Gallagher?
certainly anticipate seeking advice from the chair of the Heritage Panel as part of this work anyway, but that's a separate thing to happen. But so the issue to me, Madam Chair, is I think it has highlighted some issues of deficiencies. I want to take some learnings from this around, you know, the clear oversight and management of any heritage property that we have. And heritage property is not just the Beale Street Cottage. There are some other heritage properties, some quite large ones that we're going to be talking about later in March, actually, if you look at a broader context. And I think what this probably may highlight is trying to get the right, and I think the right balance between, you know, what we ask our property division to do and having an oversight versus if it doesn't come into a straight issue of property and has other sort of values and how we do it. So I think out of this we can probably get with the Chief Executive and Lance some really good clear lines of management. So I'm supporting this resolution on the basis that I, as a member of the committee, will be seeking advice from the chair of the Heritage Panel.
Thanks, councillor.
Can-
Further speakers?
Can I just ask if, through the chair, if councillor Gallagher and Chesterman, Deputy Mayor Chesterman, are okay with it, whether we include as point 4 that staff will report back as to whether there's any other historical reserves which need to be addressed in conjunction with this report.
In terms of management process,
It just seems to make sense to me to wrap it up.
Deputy Mayor, would you
support
be
well-
willing to?
Well, we need to make sure with the GM that he is comfortable, or
Well,
the CE.
B1 refers to consultation with the Heritage Advisory Panel. My advice would be for Councillor King to seek advice from Dr Anne McEwen, who's a noted historian and has an architectural PhD in the historical buildings, and who is on the panel, and I believe that he should have that consultation with her representing the Heritage Advisory Panel.
But councillor King's asking if you would include in the motion that staff will look at whether there are other historical reserve properties that need to be looked at as well.
We can do that. I think it's be a C, Madam Chair.
That'll be a C.
Yep.
Are you happy to include that? And councillor Gallagher, would you be happy to include that?
yes, on the basis that we're clear that is owned by council.
Yes, yeah.
All right, so we're not going to other heritage
No,
properties.
no.
But we might be, say, looking at St Peter's Hall,
Yeah.
for example.
It has to be property that's historic reserve. It's very specific. There are a lot of reserves, and it's historic reserve only.
Yeah. There are other historic reserve properties. Is that the correct? Yeah.
Just, excuse me, just a point of clarity, is historic reserves something should have capital letters? I mean, is it a
Yeah, it is.
category as opposed to just a generic word we use?
Yes.
I don't want to prolong this, but for for clarity for me and my staff, if it's historic reserve, that's a capital H and it's a capital R, so it's a classification.
It's illegal.
Or are you talking about historic buildings on
No.
parks and reserves?
I think it's
No.
very specific, isn't
Historic
it?
reserves.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
which there would be
Thank
a
you.
few. Okay, so that's been included. Is there any further debate? No? Okay, I'm going to put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? There are none against, that's carried. Thank you. Thanks, staff.
So when's our first flat party at Beale Street?
Right, item 12, we do have two chairs here, so, I would like to, let's just, because what we can do, committees, we can defer those reports from the, we can defer those reports from the chairs that aren't here, or if there are no
Madam-
questions on it, we can.
Madam Chair, I'm trying to be helpful. You know my views around timing, because it would be
I do, and I
approximately
agree with you.
3:30 in the afternoon at this point under the old
Yes,
system.
yes,
But
yes.
I'm mindful of the issue of the employment relations with our staff, all right? So there will be certain issues around what is reasonable
what I'm
to
trying-
expect of them. As elected members, to a degree, we, as you've seen, we come and go. But I just want to assist if there's any matters that we could hold over or whatever,
So
I don't know.
Yes, thank you for being so helpful, councillor Gallagher. And look, I do
bedtime.
agree with you, and that's what I was trying to get at.
I've only had 2 resignations, it's like,
Is, look, at the Business and Investment Subcommittee Chairperson's report, if the chairperson isn't here, if there are no questions, perhaps we can just accept that. But if
I'm
there
happy.
are questions,
No,
then I
I-
can defer it.
I want to speak to that, and it wouldn't be fair if
Yeah,
the
okay.
chair wasn't
So
here.
that's what I was asking. So let's defer the Business and Investment Chairperson's report to the next Strategy and Policy Committee meeting. Civil Defence on page 135, the Chair's report. Councillor Toomman is here. Is there anything you wanted to speak to? No, he's moving. Great. And I'm very happy to second that. Is there any questions on that report? Nope. Did you want to speak, councillor Toomman? I think you do a sterling job with this committee.
Since you've been here,
You
we've
do,
had no
actually.
earthquakes.
No, exactly.
No earthquakes.
Exactly. See?
Go figure.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Are there any against? That's carried. Councillor Gallagher, your chairperson's report on Community Forum Subcommittee, and you do have some recommendations there, so I'll hand over to you.
Yes, I'm very mindful of our staff and I'm sorry.
Every
that-
time you say
I'm
that,
sorry
you
that
extend the
a
meeting by
couple of
another
my-
5 minutes.
Very sorry that a couple of my good colleagues are not present, because I'm sure they'd have some questions, but
Oh,
I
they have
just
more
note you on
important things to
recommendations. And the key bit is there, the older person's plan be reported annually to the Strategy and Policy Committee to ensure consistency with reporting requirements of other council plans. I report that we had a very constructive discussion and workshop around the social indicator survey, and I want to thank all non-members of the committee for all one of you who were non-members, i.e. the Deputy Mayor who actually came, and I was really grateful, but that's fine. I'll also move.
Did you say something comical? Because people are laughing and I must have missed the joke.
No, I'm thanking the Deputy Mayor for coming.
Oh.
That's
Thank
fine.
you.
I'll so move, all right?
Oh,
Thank you,
diary.
councillor. Are there questions on councillor Gallagher's report?
Yeah, what's the difference between moving and so moving?
Emphasis. Seconded by councillor Young. Is there any debate, councillor Gallagher? No, so it's getting, yes, tea time, mate. Past tea time. All those in favour? Are there any against? That's carried. Would there be any questions on the Hearings Subcommittee Chairperson's report? Margaret Forsyth is also not with us, but if there are no questions, then it looks pretty standard.
Yeah, I'll move.
Thank you, councillor Young. Thank you, councillor Gallagher. Is there any debate? Toomman, sorry. I did hear you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? That's carried. And the Public Arts Subcommittee is chaired by Her Worship the Mayor, who is at a civic function. Again, if there are no questions there, I'd be happy to move. Otherwise, we can defer that. No, so I will move that chairperson's report be accepted. Deputy Mayor is seconding that. I certainly don't want to speak on it. Deputy Mayor, no. All those in favour?
Aye.
Are there any against? That's carried.
Congratulations, Gary. I don't think you've ever voted for public art before.
He is now.
Shit.
Don't tell him.
Can I recommit that,
Don't
please?
tell him. God.
My big
Right,
battle was that
item-
bridge.
Item 13, Chris, roundup report.
Yeah, no,
This is a huge report, I have to say.
Yep, there's a lot of information
There's a
there.
lot of information, a lot of good information.
Happy to take the report as read, just pointing out that we do have a briefing in a couple of weeks' time on the 19th of April, and we're going to focus on the speed project.
Yeah.
And we're going to have regional council there on public transport as well. So there will be a briefing opportunity to talk in more detail on the speed project and where that's at, and look specifically at some of the HCC data.
Yeah.
And regional council will be there for public transport to answer any questions. I'm happy to just answer any other questions on the report.
Okay, are there any questions, councillor Mallett?
Can I just make a personal comment, and it's not meant to offend anyone, but it will. Pages 194, 195, 196, 197. I just find that kind of layout distressing to my eyes.
Sorry, what page?
So pages 194, 95, 96 and 97, they look sort of like a kid's cut and paste. And look, I don't mean to be offensive at all.
That's right, I'll pass that on
I-
to
I just
Waikato
find
Regional
those-
Council.
Is that where it came from, is it?
That's
Oh,
right,
okay,
Waikato
all
Regional
right. I just can't, I just find those very difficult to,
It's kind of that. what
And
do
I
you
think
call
they look
this?
fantastic as a counter.
Infographic. Yeah. it's-
you're a modernist though, are you a cubist? I'm a Renaissance man.
Okay, councillor Toomey, you sit on the, transport, one of these or two of these. Is there anything you wanted to add? Public transport, civil defence, regional transport, is there
Give
anything
you
you
10
need?
bucks if you shut up.
I think since we're 19th, Chris, I think is the briefing, then
Yeah.
I think we'll probably get more out of it at this stage. It's just that I'd just like to make a quick comment is that the speed management, which is now starting to move around the Waikato, and there will be a number of demonstration projects depending upon what the local authorities actually say. And when you look at it, of course, there's 18% of all our fatalities here in the Waikato, and we're running at 22 at the present time, are speed related. 19% of them are alcohol related. So it's quite simple. Just keep on top of the speed and the booze, and we've got to be about a 40% gain as far as fatal and serious injury pressure is concerned.
Can I ask a
Well
question?
worth it.
So how many are drunk speeders?
Hang on, are we in debate or?
Sorry, I was just now going to ask a
I
question.
just wanted, as chair, councillor, well, you are chair of one of these, I wanted him to comment so we get to questions.
Do you know, it's,
Alcohol impaired speeders.
so how many of the drunks are speeding and the speeders were drunk?
It's not
Do you know
actually
that?
broken
Oh, okay.
down into that, Gary. Yeah.
So, because there could be, I would expect there'd be a lot of overlap in that. I don't know, I could be wrong.
There's careful drunks and there's
Happy drunks, sad drunks.
the careful drunks are very slow and very deliberate in their movements and that sort of stuff.
Oh.
And that's what they usually stand out with. Whereas the others are sort of more reckless type of drunks travelling at high speeds.
Councillor King?
No, I
Oh,
was
question?
just trying to work out whether we're in debate or whether we were in questions.
No, we were in questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you have questions?
Mine's more debate.
Okay. Questions? Deputy Mayor, did you have?
Right, I will frame it as a question.
Oh.
Did councillors know that I had sent out my
we
Zone
know.
2 report, which I'm not sure is read? However, I did attach to that Dr Bill Cochrane's full report on demographics in the region. So were councillors aware of that, and did you have an opportunity to read that report in depth weeks before it's come out in the Transport Committee? Are you able to answer that?
I read your report, but no, I didn't read the rest of the, I didn't read the link.
Read the
Councillor-
report but didn't read Dr Cochrane in depth.
No. Councillor Gallagher, did you have a
Shall I
question?
send it to you again,
If you
councillor
would,
Gallagher?
no, so, well, can I
Another
actually
good
say,
question.
in terms of its relevance, it'd be useful, we've got a workshop.
Yeah.
That's going to be a public open workshop. So I think in terms of the lateness there, I've already had a special meeting with Councillor Tooman, and I've identified to Councillor Tooman my comprehensive questions and comments that I intend to ask particularly around the speed trial, around some road design issues, and noting with huge concern the absolute tragedy, obviously, day in, day out, that we're reading of those fatalities and serious injuries because of our being on a major transport hub and all of that. So I think really that workshop is going to be really good for us to get down on this one and see what other extra help we need to give to Councillor Tooman in terms of his role as our representative on the relevant transport bodies.
When's that briefing, Chris?
It's the
19th.
19th. So, and I think seriously it would be good if we could arrange for the Deputy Mayor just to recirculate Dr Cochrane's report as well, because it may be of interest,
Great, thank you.
obviously.
Okay, no further questions, debate. Oh, no, well, actually, we need a motion. I'll move that, staff recommendation that the report be received. Is there a seconder?
Would you add, just for the minutes, given the lateness there, and
To
it be noted
circulate?
that there's a public workshop
Oh.
on X date,
Yes,
okay?
we can note that. On the
19th.
19th of
Briefing, no, it's
May.
a council briefing.
Yeah.
April.
On what?
April.
A briefing, a public briefing on the 19th of May.
April.
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 April, March, I
Sorry.
think.
April.
April, whatever it is, just, I think it's just useful as a minute note, that's
Yeah.
all.
Okay,
Well, hang
so
on.
that's been
That's not in our calendars. 18th of April?
19.
19th, sorry.
19th of April.
It's in my calendar.
Got it.
Yeah, it's in my
Okay.
calendar.
Thanks.
Okay, so that's been moved by myself, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Debate. Councillor King?
Yeah, I probably disagree with some people in this room. When we got in here, when we got elected, I think everybody in this room stood up and said that they would reverse out of the 40k, from 50 to 40k safer streets that we had on my side of the river, or the majority, a lot of people did. Once the election happened, we did actually stop things right there, but it's been very, very difficult to reverse back out of it. It's been a lesson in patience for me, and nothing's going to happen in this trimester, and if it ever happens. So I believe that roads were made for cars, and that 30 miles an hour was how it was when I was a child. It lifted to 50 kilometres an hour, which is slightly less than 30 miles an hour. Later, we were spending a fortune on dumbing our streets back down that were all designed for 30 miles an hour, 50 k's an hour. We were pouring money in to put trees in the middle of roads and to divert traffic, to slow them down. And I just do not see the logic in it. We do have our one-way streets where kids do play on them, and where people do come into those streets and drive at slower speeds, but I am looking forward to the day when the NZTA, who are looking at the whole safer speeds thing, which includes inside the town, within a couple of years it will be, I suppose, before they start coming back with changes. And I'm looking forward to that time when that does start to happen. We get some direction and some consistency across the whole country, instead of different councils doing their own thing on their own. And when people would be going from town to town, they'd have no idea what the expectation of a certain type of street was. So, yeah, it's been frustrating looking on. I think that Chris's team is probably the most important team in council, and possibly some of the hardest decisions that have to be made out of Chris's team. So this isn't a criticism. This is just reminding everybody of where we are in the cycle.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other comments? Councillor Tooman?
Yeah, I'd just like to remind Councillor King that I never ever stated prior to election or anything that I supported 50 kilometres per hour. The other thing is, of course, Councillor King says that roads were made for cars. I firmly believe that roads are made for people. And, of course, people drive motor cars. There's no two ways about that. But I really think it's time that we, as a community, started to reclaim our streets. By reclaiming our streets, I mean that one of the issues, I think, which communities are facing today is that we have stopped talking to each other. And I believe that if we can get slower streets, we can actually get kids playing on the road cricket. And as people drive down that 40k street, they push the button and up goes their garage door. In drives their motor vehicle, so you can then close the garage door behind them. They've got a 1.8 metre high fence around them place, and I think what it is one of the issues which is facing society today is loneliness within their own neighbourhood. People don't know who their next door neighbour is. And I think if anything we can do, of course, to reclaim our streets, it's got to be well worth a try. There's no two ways about that. I think one of the biggest tragedies, of course, is, and we pick up the paper every day, as Councillor Gallagher has referred to, and currently today, I think from memory here in the Waikato, there's 22 people who have actually died. And there's an elderly lady, 92 years of age, the other day, just around the corner from me, who actually died in a little 40k zone in a little cul-de-sac. So it can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be on State Highway number 1. It can be in a little wee cul-de-sac. So I stick by my election promises that 40k is the appropriate speeds, particularly in residential areas, and heaven forbid the day that we actually renege on that one.
Thank you, councillor. Deputy Mayor and then councillor Gallagher.
Look, I absolutely agree with Councillor Tooman, whose expertise in this whole area is unquestioned. I'd like to make a point that, yes, in Dinsdale, there was a petition that came to council. I can't remember the name of the road. Was it
Dinsdale Road.
Dinsdale Road. And the irony was, the addresses on the petition, out of the 200 or 300 names who signed that at the supermarket, only one lived on Dinsdale Road. And the people of Dinsdale were actually concerned about the way in which that street was used as a rat run at a fast rate of knots. So over on the east side, in Claudelands in particular, none of those side roads, Piarco and so on, could ever take a full speed down those roads. And they are small communities, and certainly in those areas, 40k, even if you didn't legislate it, that is the speed that traffic would go in that area. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor. Councillor Gallagher.
Yeah, look, I'm looking forward to the workshop, and I just want to say that I have supported those slow street trials, and I realise there may be some fine tuning, and as a very young man I got great guidance from then Traffic Officer Leo Tooman on a lot of these issues, and the issue is trying to keep our kids and our families safe, and having said that, there may be better calibration. The other thing which I note, and Councillor King and I are on the same side of this one, is we were trying to get that speed limit along Whatawhata Road reduced, down from 100k to 80k, and the time it got us to achieve a temporary reduction, I believe in the People's Republic of China, they've probably built a multi-lane freeway from Shanghai all the way to Beijing and back again. And I have to say that at the workshop, I'm really looking forward to venting my spleen on the cumbersome processes. Agree with Councillor King around getting decent national standards. I just have a frustration, which Leo knows, about how long it takes us to do this stuff. It'll be a good, rigorous discussion. I look forward to it.
In communist China, they don't have any children now. You're only allowed one.
Okay.
Only one, yeah.
There's no kid. There's no. Well, they've
Okay.
just changed it. Yeah.
And none of them are spoiled.
That's what they do in
Okay.
None of them are spoiled.
Two.
That's changed in the last
It
3
has
months.
changed.
Okay.
They're working on it.
All right. I just have a couple of.
Just a point of clarification on your speech. Everybody in this chamber, from my memory, apart from Dave, voted to stop the 40Ks in their tracks.
No, I didn't.
Look, I don't think we've got that information.
I'll be in
I
seeing
certainly don't
Jude
have
tomorrow, I assure you of that.
Okay, I've got a couple of comments to make. It's interesting, isn't it, in my time on council, when you start talking about speed, we all get behind the wheel of a car and suddenly we're all expert drivers. And I completely agree with what the Deputy Mayor said around, that I do vaguely recall the submission, the petition, and I remember scanning down as well, and I live in the Dinsdale area, noting that, interestingly enough, there were very few addresses from Dinsdale Road, and I agree, anything that slows us down in a car, if we're using it as a rat run, we don't like that and we want it changed. However, I'm not an expert, and I think that the course that we did take was the correct course to take. We do have the National Speed Management Policy, whatever they're calling it, coming to a close, and I think that by halting the work that we did was a sensible, common sense thing to do, rather than trying to debate in the chamber what streets we think should be this speed or that speed or anything else. I think it was a sensible move, and I look forward to the briefing as well. Okay, so it's the report, and just that the report be received. Recommendation on page 141. All those in favour? Are there any against? Okay, that's carried. Right, item 14 is the action list. I don't have anything to change there, but I believe the General Lance has one update.
There's one.
Sean, yep.
I can speak to it. It's just in relation to the zoo master plan, which was due to come back.
Sean, could you just give us a page number and
Yeah.
a reference number?
Page
201,
201, and it's the third, item number 4.
Thank you.
So the zoo master plan be deferred from the May strategy and policy meeting agenda. So as findings of the PwC review of the zoo operations and the WorkSafe New Zealand prosecution can be considered as part of this. So that's deferring to the 19th of July. Sorry,
To July.
from May to July.
oh yeah, 19th of July, S&P.
Just a question, sorry, and that's because there's a PwC report which we need to look at, is that right?
So there's a PwC review.
And the
WorkSafe
WorkSafe
New Zealand
prosecution.
We're being realistic. This has been put off now probably 4 times. Should we push it out for longer than that to really just give time to digest and...
Well, our view, councillors, is we want to bring the information to you as soon as possible. The issue is now that we're there's 2 processes that are underway and we can't control them. So,
Are you being realistic with the date you've set?
if we have to change again, we will, or we can extend the date out by a couple of extra months. If that's we don't deliberately try and delay things. That's all. We try to do our best. And
No, I understand that, but each month we're pushing this out and pushing it out. Why don't you push it out to a reasonable time frame? You can always pull it back in again.
yep. So what's the current date?
It's just
So we've pushed it out to the 19th of July, so we could...
30 August is the last S&P meeting of the...
Yeah, so let's do it 30th of August then, Councillor King.
Does that make sense to you?
It does. We'll bring, and our goal is, our absolute goal is to bring it to the committee ASAP.
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
That was the only item on the action list.
yeah. Okay, so I'll move that the action list be... Oh, sorry, councillor
No,
Millett.
I second it.
Oh, thanks, councillor Millett seconding. Is there any debate? All those in favour? Is there any against? That's carried. Okay, now we are supposed to be doing item 16, but I am aware that councillor McPherson isn't here, although councillor Gallagher, you had some interest in this, so I'm guided by the committee. We've also got 5 minutes before we've extended past our
Sure,
time.
I just wanted to perhaps ask for a CEO or some sort of update on the issues to just next full council. I think there's some
next
significant
Thursday when
heritage
everyone's
areas,
here?
but if I can pass the item over, but then I've given our CEO, whoever he delegates, obviously, to actually give us an update as to the exact state of the play, the heritage trees.
Which, Councillor Gallagher, sorry, I didn't interrupt, sorry. There is on the next council agenda, there is a paper regarding the Ruakura variation, and that will specifically include reference to the trees. That's in publicly excluded because it relates to a process that's underway from an appeal point of view, but that will be coming to council.
So initially it's public excluded, so we can explore our options potentially.
That's right, because effectively it's our approach.
Yeah.
But we could...
Note.
We could defer this, because this item has formally been accepted by the
Yeah.
committee onto the agenda, but as I said, councillor McPherson is not here and he has an interest in it. We can defer the Ruakura trees item to council next, and that's an open?
Just to be clear to the committee, however, there is 2 aspects to the Ruakura trees. There's one in relation to the variation, but there's also a resource consent in play in respect to some trees as well. And Calvin Eglinton, the GM City Growth, can quickly brief the committee members that are still remaining on that one
I just
at a high level now. Councillor Gallagher, if that suits you.
My personal opinion would be to defer it because councillor McPherson's not
I'm happy
had an
to
interest
have
in
it
it.
deferred on the basis that at full council we'll receive some immediate advice as to what can be discussed and should be discussed in the public arena.
Yeah,
Because none
that
of us
part
would
of
want
it,
to
yeah.
compromise any advice we needed to take in position potentially, which would be dealt with in
Any
closed.
information that we can give in
Yeah.
public.
And look, just to be as helpful as councillor Gallagher, why don't you have the chief executive communicate the proposed decision to councillor McPherson, who couldn't be here tonight, so he understands that his issue will come forward?
Yeah.
I've spoken to Councillor McPherson and also offered him for the GM City Growth to ring him directly and bring him up to speed. If you councillors will also recall that an update was provided to councillors in an executive update of 2 weeks back, and I'm more than happy to recirculate that to councillors as well.
I understand he's changing himself to a tree now as we speak, isn't he?
Councillor King?
Are these trees protected?
Some are.
They're scheduled trees under the district plan, or the proposed district plan.
So I think it's just procedural motion that it be noted that late item 16, the late item be deferred to full council.
So, hang on, the owner of the trees didn't
well,
protect them, and we as a council have come along and slapped a protection order on them. Is that what's happened?
So no, I need to, sorry councillor, hang on committee, I need to, we've got a procedural motion from councillor Gallagher. He's going to move, I am going to second that.
Can we ask some questions
So
before you move?
well, no,
Before he moves it.
but it's, well,
he
he'd
hasn't
have
moved
to
it.
put his procedural motion on hold, but a procedural motion
I'm
takes.
happy, Madam
Well,
Chair.
then
look,
what's the point in
I'm
discussing
happy,
it?
I am happy, because I never want to knock out
Yeah.
discussion and proper questioning, and I don't want to use procedural motions as some way
Okay.
to put a
So
guillotine.
you wanna park
But
that for now?
I'm parking it,
Okay,
but I'm probably giving a very informal intention within a couple of minutes I'll be moving it.
So what my question is who put the historic order on the trees?
I'll ask
So under the operative district plan, there's no scheduling of those trees. They're not a protection order, it's a scheduling. And then through the submission process under the proposed district plan, submissions were made to put that protection order across
By who?
by various submitters, including people who have made opinion pieces in the media as of yesterday.
So the owners, somebody apart from the owners of the trees,
Correct. So it's
has
much like
talked
the
us
issues we have
into-
around heritage issues or significance trees, that if they are noted in submission and we note them, but through the variation process,
Yep.
there will be an absolute process, tree by tree or grouping of trees that will go through to
Thanks,
determine
Aaron.
where that significance sit. So whether they are in fact significant or not.
this is the beginning of, I'd propose this is the beginning of people meddling with other people's
The
old
beginning.
homes, old buildings and old trees.
Just to be, Calvin has stayed back. So go ahead with your motion, councillor, but Calvin is here with some information if anyone wants to gather around him after the meeting and have a quick chat for their own information. I'm making that offer available. He's sat here prepared to have that conversation, so it'd be quite nice for him to be able to talk to someone about it.
Could he email it to us, Kim?
We have emailed
Calvin?
it to you, so
Oh, you have?
if you go back to the executive update, there's an update and a map.
Today's one?
No, 2 weeks
it
ago,
has. It's gone out.
which included the
Yeah,
information.
it's gone out.
We've got a better map here today we can show you as well.
I just need to interrupt because we are past our
I'm
time.
going to move a procedural motion.
Sorry, we just need a motion from the table to be moved and seconded, or moved to extend, moved by councillor Mallett, seconded by councillor Tooman. Well, hang on, is there any debate on that motion? I am actually going to say something. I'm going to vote against the motion because not only have we failed a quorum because people have got other responsibilities to go. No, we haven't yet, but we do it regularly. I actually agree, councillor Gallagher. It's time to start these meetings at 9:30, and perhaps that's for the new council. But we're keeping staff late all the time, and it's not good governance. So the motion is to continue the meeting.
Is that a vote of
past
no confidence?
the 6th. No, it's not. It's simply
Richard was
just
clean
speaking
shaven at
against
the start of this
motion.
meeting, weren't you?
Just speaking against motion. So, all those in favour of continuing, please raise your hands. And those against?
Carried 5-2.
3.
3.
Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor also. Okay, so, sorry, councillor King. No, where were we? Councillor Gallagher, your procedural motion.
Well, and that's the only reason I voted to keep the meeting alive, so I could do my procedural, is I'm going to move that this item be held over to full,
Deferred to
deferred to full council. To
the
the
31st of
the council
March.
meeting on the 31st, and that will enable, well, I can't give it, I think it's clear what I'm trying to do, and whatever side you stand on this issue, I think it'd be very appropriate to have an update.
Thank you, councillor. So councillor Gallagher is seconding that. Councillor Mallett is Sorry, councillor Gallagher's moving, councillor Mallet is seconding. Is there any debate? All those in favour?
Aye.
Are there any against? That's carried, thank you. One more, people, one more.
You have to go to pink, don't we?
Item, yes, move into public excluded, and this is to
move.
accept minutes.
second.
Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by councillor Young. All those in favour? Any against?